Welcome back to Fast Market on the TD Ameritrade Network. I'm Tom White, joined by my co-host Kevin Hanks. But let's bring in our next guest for our cash tag segment. That's going to be Megan Brantley, Vice President of Research at LikeFolio. Welcome back, Megan.
Thanks, guys. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. And it's not a happy 2022 for Wayfair here. Shares are down over 70% so far this year. Now, Megan, you know, I was ordering furniture a couple years ago, and it was like, hey, it's going to take 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. And then they were charging me full price, and there's no sales anymore. That has all deteriorated. What kind of data are you guys seeing on Wayfair? Because this stock has just been hammered.
Yeah, so whenever we look at Wayfair, you know, what we're really measuring is from mentions of people who are talking about shopping with Wayfair, that year-over-year decline is starting to flatten out. So if you look at, you know, last quarter, whenever we were measuring, okay, how many people are talking about shopping with Wayfair versus last year, we had those mentions down about 46% year over year. So that was a pretty significant decline. Now those mentions are pacing down about 19% year over year. So it's one of those things where, you know, we still continue to report a loss of momentum for Wayfair overall. However, that slope is flattening out. And so one thing, if you're trying to find a positive point in this data, you know, what's driving this kind of tempering of loss in momentum, one thing that they're doing really good this year is engaging customers in their annual, you know, anniversary sale. I didn't realize this, but did you guys know this is their 20th anniversary sale? You know, I think that really Wayfair popped onto the scene in 2020, but this is a company that's been trying to get established for some time. And in this anniversary sale, we start to see some strength among consumers who are trying to find these deals. So these are mentions from consumers who are talking about shopping a deal specifically in this anniversary sale. And you can see those mentions are up by about 52% year over year. Now, so far, you know, this alone isn't enough to move the needle significantly back to the positive for Wayfair as a whole. However, it is, you know, starting to temper that slowdown in overall demand of all mentions of people who are talking about shopping with Wayfair.
Megan, I have my Thinkorswim platform up, and this stock, you know, it did well during the pandemic. You see the big jump in the price of the stock between all the metrics, and then it came down. This stock now trades lower than pre-pandemic. So all the growth that it had before the pandemic, it's now lost that momentum. Obviously, some of the momentum with purchasing it has dissipated. But Megan, this company struggles to be profitable, as you know. If you look back on 5 years of data, which is I have up on mine, they lose, make, lose, make, lose, make. So it's not consistent. It's got a negative PE. All those metrics added to its weakness coming out of the pandemic, right? The market punished you if you didn't have real earnings. So what does this company need? If we release some of the tariffs on China, that'll help a company like Wayfair. If we get the supply chain fixed, that'll help a company like Wayfair. We need the economy to just firm up or stabilize, and that'll help Wayfair. But this company still struggles, Megan, to be profitable. What are you seeing in terms of that? Because it's lower than it was before the pandemic. It's not like it made money during the pandemic and came down slightly. It's lower than it was, Megan.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, whenever we look at Wayfair overall, another element that we like to look at, or another metric we look at, is consumer happiness levels. And whenever you look at Wayfair's consumer happiness, you know, it's dropped over time. And I think it's around 58% positive. And that's pretty low comparatively in the big scheme of things. And that's lower than it has been. So I think there are other areas, you know, not just in terms of external economic factors that could help Wayfair, but just internal policies, whether it's customer service, whether it's, you know, improved quality of products, things like that, that consumers would be really receptive to. I think that, you know, they are doing a good job of at least attracting those consumers in and giving consumers in what they think is a deal, because we know that that is something, especially among, you know, just regular Joe consumers, that's something that's driving demand right now, is that element of deal discovery. Because, you know, there's almost two camps whenever we look at these companies, especially operating in like this home reno, home decor space. You've got the Wayfairs of the world and Overstocks of the world, and we do see Wayfair outperforming peers in terms of these, you know, value companies. However, on the flip side, we see momentum building in these, higher quality names for, that more affluent consumers are shopping, like Restoration Hardware. We see that company gaining momentum. Those mentions are actually up on a year-over-year basis. We also see momentum in Williams-Sonoma. Whenever you look at consumer demand, that demand's also up on a year-over-year basis. So it's interesting to see these two camps emerge, but I definitely think that Wayfair has room for continued improvement in terms of, just execution and the experience that they're providing with the consumer, but they are outperforming these other, value names in that space.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to hit on, Megan, because the average, consumer that shops at Wayfair makes anywhere from $50,000 to $225,000 a year as a family, right? And those are the families that typically spend when the economy is doing well. But with this inflationary environment, they're not spending. And if they are spending, they're doing it on travel and experiences. So their nut for the consumer is actually drying up a little bit. When you see this promotion, this tick up in promotional activity, that also hurts the company as far as margins go. So maybe they're selling more or there's more interest in it. Is that a headwind for this company when you see promotional activity, anniversary sales? That's when margins shrink, and they've already got inflationary pressures as far as wages go. Is that maybe the bad side of an uptick in your sentiment?
Yeah, that's a really good point. That definitely is something that doesn't help their bottom line, right? This isn't necessarily helping if they're selling products at a lower price. But I think one good sign is that they are proving that they can re-engage these repeat buyers. I think that last quarter or recently they insinuated that 78% of buyers were like repeat buyers that were coming back and likely to shop again. And so I think that this is a good sign that they're engaging that user base that's already familiar with Wayfair. However, they need to continue to expand this user base, right? That's what's going to drive growth. And so far, we're not seeing signs of really significant expansion. We're not seeing a flip in that year-over-year, demand, of that loss in momentum. But we are starting to see that flatten out. So I guess if you want to take the positive side of this, that loss of momentum is flattening, and because of that, whenever we look at if we're trying to give this an earnings score, we actually see this overperforming expectations, just because perhaps the loss isn't as bad as it has been historically, but it's definitely not a bright picture for the company to paint moving forward.
Yeah, definitely going to be some execution concerns, I think, going into their next earnings report, but you guys are still pretty positive on that. Oh, yeah, little side note, Restoration Hardware has been doing better than this name, and you mentioned Williams-Sonoma also, so the high end is still doing well. We had this whole conversation earlier, Megan, about the consumer and the divergence that we're seeing between the high-end shoppers and the middle to low-end shoppers, and that divergence is continuing to widen. And by the way, Restoration Hardware, 2 side table lamps, $700. Are you kidding me? Who can afford that? Who can afford that stuff? All right, Megan, great stuff as always. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, guys. You too.
All right, that's Megan Brantley, Vice President of Research at LikeFolio, helping us break down the consumer sentiment data on Wayfair.